You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Did you say am I in pain? I'm in pain because I'm here with you.
No, you're not. Your shoulder, you're an idiot. You should. Where's the sling?
Don, we've got far bigger fish to fry. Just listen.
You're a clown.
We've got far bigger fish to fry. In somewhat of a coup, Don.
Yeah, it is.
You will think, he will think, before I introduce him, that we've got him in here because suddenly Carlton are playing in the finals, but I've been trying to get this man on, to speak to him on our podcast for a long time.
Why wouldn't he come on? Can I ask him that?
Get back from the microphone.
Well, you
please.
tell me to speak into the microphone.
Not
You're
with your mouth over the top of it. Mate, please.
We've got a guest.
Who's this?
Just a minute. So, why has he come on now? Well, maybe you can ask him. He doesn't. I don't remember anyone ever interviewing this man ever.
That's exactly why.
Well, he might explain why he's on. I don't know, but it is somewhat of a coup because he is. Let me tell you who he is. He has played 331 games, but apparently it's only it's 328. But if you'll remember, when you played for Victoria, they counted those games on as though you had played for your side. Well, I'm accredited with playing 303 games for Geelong, but I played only 300 because the 3 I missed was when I played for Victoria, right? So he is accredited with playing 328 games for the Carlton Football Club. He kicked 307 goals. I'm not going to go through the list of achievements. He is the first Carlton player ever to have played 300 games. He's coached them. He's won more trophies. He is the number one Carlton player of all time on their registry. He is considered the champion player.
And the brother of Don.
Don, I'm introducing who he is. Don't worry about who his brother is at this stage. You can ask him about his brother. And he was an inaugural member of the Legends status from the Hall of Fame, from the AFL. I think that was in 1996 when it was first started. He was an inaugural member, and he is the great John Nichols. John, thank you very much for coming in to speak to us on You Cannot Be Serious. It's a great honour and privilege. I know we've played against you, Don and I, and Ivan has never played against anyone. He's just sitting here listening. We've played against you, but we revere you, and the Carlton and the football community throughout Australia revere you. So thank you for coming in. And speak into the microphone, please. We'd hate to miss what you say.
Thank you, Sam, or John, whatever your name is. And Scotty, answer the first question,
this is
Scotty.
Not like you. You don't smile,
Scotty,
and you don't do comedy.
Scotty, and you want to know the question why I didn't come on? It was probably because of you.
Now listen, if it wasn't for your brother, you wouldn't be sitting here. Is that right?
No, I was probably a young fat kid in the country, and my brother Don was a prodigy. At 15 he won the best and fairest in the Maribor competition. At 16 he won the Courier Trophy in the whole Ballarat League at 16. And he probably played 72 games with Carlton. Could have played a lot more if there were better medical facilities and things. He had a bad ankle and never got fixed properly, and in those days, of course, there was no money in it. Play for £6 or $6, what it was in those days.
Is your brother still alive?
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, in that case, John, we could speak to your brother sometime. Don, let's not worry about his brother. We're speaking to John about his career.
But they went up to recruit your brother, didn't they? And the add-on was you. So if your brother wasn't a good footballer, you may never have played football, do you think?
Well, I don't know. You know what you're smoking nowadays, Scotty. But this is fantasy. Fantasy.
Well done. That's stuff you gave me.
There's been a lot of folklore about my brother and myself, but most of it's bullshit.
So, John, It says here, I'm just reading out of the compendium of your CV. It says you compensated, John Nichols compensated for the lack of height with his intelligence and imposing physical presence. I think that would be fair to say, because by today's standards, Don and I and you are shorter ruckmen, but your imposing physical presence and your intelligence saw you through.
Well, what you read out would be right, because I wrote that, so that'd be right, be correct. And as far as, well, I was lucky in one of your mentors, the great Graham Farmer, and I had battles for ages, and there were a lot of very great photos. It used to appear in the Herald Sun that Bob Buchanan and various, and we could jump, both could jump.
Yep.
I had to learn how to jump off 3 steps, because otherwise people, Len Thompson and some of these six blokes started coming along. But Scotty, I remember you were completely different to Sam. I don't know whether I played against you, but I meant Don Scott and Crackers Keenan and those blokes. I remember you sort of be standing in a straight line, having a long run, and you're frothing at the mouth when you want to jump through this bloke at the centre bounce and thing. I mean, blokes like you and Crackers would say to me, why don't you jump at me straight on like a man?
Face me, they'd say. Face me.
Face me.
You're a squib, you're a coward, face me. Yeah, that's right, he used to do that to me, and I'd say, well, I'm pretty good doing it.
And you know who was telling me to say that? The coach, John Kennedy.
Yes, but I played my first game against Kanga, and it's what a great man he was. I mean, Easter Monday, 1957, played Hawthorn up at Carlton, Ken Hands, and Kanga. He could run a long distance slowly. He couldn't kick. He couldn't mark, but he used to bluff one of our good players in those days, Graham Donaldson. 6'5", could run, do everything left and right foot, but every time he played Hawthorn, Kanga would worry him out of it, and he used to be a bundle of nerves playing on Kanga, because he would mentally it'd kill him mentally. So telling me to run at me like a man I never had a chance to do it to you, but with Crackers Keenan and those.
Now listen, tell me. Hang on.
Just a minute. He's telling you a story. He's about to tell you how he handled Crackers like he handled Len Thompson, I've got a feeling.
Did you ever play against that big bloke from North Melbourne, Bob Pascoe?
Yeah, he kicked me.
Yeah, well,
when I was on the ground.
Well, no, that's you always tend to exaggerate things. I mean, I can imagine him walking over you, but just going back to centre bounces, we're talking about, which is the art of ruckwork, really.
Exactly.
But with Bob Pascoe, he used to love running straight at you, centre bounces, but he'd run and jumping straight at you with his knees up and trying to damage you.
So did Russell Crowe.
Oh yes, but I mean, listen. When I started in 1957, I started playing against blokes like Butch Gale and those, and centre bounces and boundary throw-ins. I couldn't work out boundary throw-ins in particular. You go up and all of a sudden I've got a broken nose and I'm bleeding and things, and it took me 12 months to learn about what to do and what not to do. And where possible for the next 17 years, what I learned, I passed on.
Exactly. Now, can I ask you...
receipts.
Exactly. Now, I was only a kid. Can you explain a few... there's a couple of stories I want to ask you. Incidents.
Not the one about Len Thompson.
No, that's the second one. The first one's about Ken Boyd. Now, I was only a kid. Now, what was the story about Boyd? He came out in the paper a few weeks after playing against Carlton, and then they reported him on the strength of, kicking or hitting you or something?
You asked me a question. You're going to tell the story? Do you want to answer the question?
You tell me now. Go.
Well, quite simply, Ken Boyd is fit and well today, and he's a lovely bloke. Port Melbourne boy, grew up on the streets, but he was an enigma as a footballer, because he was a very skilled 6'1" ruck rover in those days. And as you know, in those days, with a ruckman and a ruck rover and a rover, the old-fashioned way, Bordy was a ruck rover and never went for a centre bounce hit out or a boundary throw in. He never jumped. And we, in those days, Carlton normally could beat South Melbourne playing at Princess Park. But let's go back early that year. We played South Melbourne down at Lakeside Oval. And Bordy had that white line fever sometimes. He'd be as good as gold and cool. Next minute his eyes would twirl and you think he's going to go off. That day he got reported for hitting a little rover of ours, John Heathcote. Got reported, and later in the game, same thing again. He went off and a boundary throw, and he whacked me. Got reported twice. Got 8 weeks at the tribunal. 2 weeks later, we come back and played South Melbourne up at Carlton. Every time I played against Bordy, you were nervous because you didn't know what he was going to do. Fair dinkum didn't know what he was going to do. And probably in the second quarter, we were about 4 or 5 goals up and playing well. And I don't know for what reason, but we go to Carlton, kick a goal, we go back to the centre bounce. And looking across the circle at me was Bordy, looking at me with mad eyes, and I thought he's going to do something to me this time. Well, growing up in such a tough area as a young kid, you learnt how to protect yourself. And we were talking about Ruckman, who knew about the good and the bad and how to protect yourself. So I thought, he's got me lined up. So as you do in those days, you would jump, lift your legs, got a head out, Gallagher, kick another goal.
Gallagher?
Adrian Gallagher.
Yep.
2 or 3 minutes later, another centre bounce. I thought he's got worse. He's going to, he never jumped at a centre bounce ever. So this particular day, he went for one centre bounce hit out. I won. And the next one, a few minutes later, he's going to do it again. So I thought, well, just jumped. Now, I didn't do anything but protect myself. And then the ball's gone up to our forward line. I think I'm playing on the half forward line, a kick behind or something. Next minute I hear thump, 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 and Wacky's king hit me from behind. Now, in those days, it wasn't reported for it. One umpire, of course.
No television?
Well, one umpire. No, well, there was probably television.
Yeah, well, no cameras.
In those after-match drinks, which we all used to love talking to our mates in opposition to it, a journalist by the name of Jack Dunn said to Boyd in the aftermatch, "Why did you hit Nichols?" And he said he kicked me in the balls. And that was that. But then next day, in the newspaper, not weeks later, on the Monday, the league decided to have an investigation into it. He gets charged and got 12 weeks. So that year, Boody got 8 weeks the first time and 12 the second. He never played. Went to Wangaratta after that. I see him odd times. Years later, I bought life insurance off him. We're good mates. But he was just a Jekyll and Hyde.
John, Don?
Can I ask you about another incident?
Oh, well,
and you
right.
brought it up earlier. These things fascinate
well, do you
me.
think I'm not going to ask him about some incidents?
Now listen, Len Thompson.
I'll be quick on this, Scotty, because going back about 4 or 5 years ago now, it might be 7 or 8 years ago, about 11 o'clock at night my phone rang. I don't know what you've been doing, but you woke me up.
Who, me?
You rang me at home.
You're on that stuff.
You rang me at home.
Oh, you're on the day.
Scotty, you rang me at home. You said, Nick, tell me about Len Thompson. This is 11 o'clock at night. So it must have been on your mind. You woke me up. I explained to you at the time. No, I'm not going to explain to you again.
John, explain it to me, please. Because Len was a great friend of all of ours, and the late Len Thompson.
A great man, yeah.
And he was a good player, a great player, Brownlow medalist. And you saw him off. You saw him off with a little. Was it a little jolt to the temple?
What did you do? Set him up in front?
You understood those things because I'll talk to you about. One day you break my nose twice.
No, I did not.
Secondly, look with Tomo. Tomo was a great friend of everyone.
Yep.
He would come into dances at Carlton. He was great mates with Adrian Gallagher. And he was on the way up, and he started training with out of Caulfield with John Tolman and he was getting the great John Tolman, what a man. But Tomo was coming up, didn't know the first thing about ruck work. And I think as the game went on, first quarter, second quarter, he was...
First quarter it was.
Well, in the first quarter, he was booting me and sending bounces. He'd say, "Oh, come on, give it away, old man. You're too old. Come on, give it away, give it away." So I thought, well, it's about time I taught this kid a lesson.
And how did you do that?
At the boundary throw in?
What did you do? Go on.
Well, I thought, well, just to prove that I'm
Go on.
No, careful about these things. I did it in front of the press box, in front of all the cameras.
You did it over in that pocket over on the other side of Princess Park.
You weren't there. You don't
I
know.
saw how I was you.
You know where the old press box was? On the
I
wing?
know, it was on the other
And
side.
that was right in front of that great
you're
there.
So you thought,
So-
I'll teach this boy a lesson.
No,
Go on.
No, I didn't.
You didn't
Tomo
what?
was a bit naive. He should never have got on the stretcher. He could have walked off, but it was a young kid didn't know. First time it happened to him, so he thought he better go off on the stretcher.
So, no, John, that's...
What did you do? Put him
Yes.
in front and come
No,
from
what'd
behind
you
with a
do?
roundhouse, did you?
No, he would have
I
been
never
just
did
a
that.
subtle...
Oh,
Would have been a subtle elbow.
Listen,
What was it?
I've got in.
Whimpering up.
I'm battling with health at the moment. Seriously,
Yeah, no, he is too. I know this.
but I'm seriously battling with health in a big way. But I've discovered that with my body and my arms, if you think about it, let's say I played round figures 400 games roughly,
Yeah.
320, and played 31 games for Victoria, plus and so on. My left arm, I can hardly lift above my head. And I didn't really think about it until the last few weeks when I've had getting treatment and things. My right arm's okay, but
So this is how you knocked Thompson out, because you couldn't lift your arm.
no. But to ask Scotty, if you never learned how to do it, Scotty, but Sam did, because he used to do it to me because he learned from Polly. And then Simon Madden, the greatest ruckman in the last 30 years, learned from us and then got better at it because he was taller and quicker and could jump higher than us. But the whole thing was, you get, for ruckman to do what we used to do, you really had to get level or in front. And I was left-handed, so I'd get on the left-hand side of them and you hit them with your right hand.
and
So
you
that's
put
what-
that right hand to go on the shoulder to keep
No,
the play.
no,
You did that all the time.
Never.
You infringed.
No.
No, that's you're quite right.
No, Scotty, you've had enough time. I want to talk to Sam for a minute. Do you mind?
So you'd keep people on your right hand side. You keep them away with your right hand. You hit the ball with your left hand.
Yes.
A la Farmer.
Yes.
And now, John, you two, Farmer and you, were responsible. I don't know of any other players, probably later in life there were, but you were responsible, you two, for dragging the majority of the crowd to games because they wanted to see the clash of the Titans. And you must have had great respect for him as he did for you, and I know that because he was a great friend of mine, Polly. Did you warm to him? Did you have any conversations with him, or did you ever discuss it, or were you fairly remote from one another?
I regard us as being very good friends, but you know Polly well. He had no sense of humour. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. He liked to gamble too, but he had no sense of humour. To him, it was, when he came... It
was all business.
When Bobby Davis brought him over,
Yep.
everyone complained about the money he got to come over. With Geelong got it back in the first year with gate receipts and
They
things,
did.
giving it training. And if Carlton played Geelong up at Princess Park, we could pull another 10,000 people in.
I know that. He got £2,000 to come across from Perth in 62. 62?
That's a lot of money.
£2,000 was an extraordinary amount of money.
But
Yeah.
there was one fallacy with Polly and I. When he did his knee at Carlton,
Yep,
everyone thought he was playing against me, but I was injured. I was in the sand.
yep,
He did it jumping into Murray Sankey in the goal square.
yep.
Late Murray Sankey got killed in a car accident 12 months later. But in front of the Heatley stand at Carlton, a throw up in the goal square. He jumped early, as he did, and put his knee in your guts.
Yep.
He did it to Murray Sankey and landed and did his knee. And I was injured from the ground watching it.
John, that was the day Maurice Sankey knocked me out in that exact game.
Well, I've got no sympathy for you, sorry.
He knocked me out because I ran across his path at the centre bounce, because that gave Farmer a chance, and he said, don't do that again. And I did it for the second time after we'd kicked the first goal, and he just knocked me out. And I played half a game of football, half a quarter.
Well, what do you want, sympathy?
No, I don't. I'm just telling you. And we talk about getting CTE and getting knocked about.
So I've watched a lot of YouTube film, YouTube, which goes back. I like the old vintage stuff. Now, we're talking about you handing it out, but shit, you copped a bit of it too, didn't you?
Oh, when I was a young kid.
Even in your later life, you copped your share.
No, probably not a lot, but I mean, my first 12 months as a 17-year-old kid from the country playing against the Butch Gales and these guys, Roy Wright and those great names, it was tough with one umpire in those days. My mentor was Ken Hands.
Well, he was tough,
and he was the toughest, smartest bloke I know. And I couldn't work out why he was about 6'2" and he'd play against the bloke from Essendon,
Jeff Leake?
McClure, no, before Leake, Blue McClure and Roy Wright and these sort of guys. And I couldn't work out how he could beat them, centre bounces, but it was the thing that later on, and of course with Polly and Sam Madden, used the angles, 45-degree angles and things. This is the thing with you, Donnie McKenzie from Essendon and Crackers Keen and these sort of guys. You'd have a big, long, straight run at the centre bounce. And you had no idea really where the ball was going to go, which way. You were locked in. You were jumping so high, you were limited to where you could hit it. You couldn't hit it on the side, you couldn't hit it behind you. So when we started doing the angles, you can jump off 3 steps. And as I said, boundary throw-ins and things with Polly. There's been a lot of photos printed over the years, and they're not false photos. You can show how high we could jump.
Yep.
But then, in those days, of course, umpires have never understood ruck work. Never have and never will. Now we've got 4 of them running around that play free kicks in the ruck for shepherding in the ruck centre bounces.
Yep.
God help me.
Yeah, but hang on, they don't pay them, they hold one another. There's no body use at all in ruck work now, and the boundary throw-ins are just a disgrace the way they hold one another.
Well, with Sam and Simon Madden and Polly, we never wrestled.
That's what I'm saying.
We jumped from our angles.
But the umpires used to penalise if you locked arms.
But Sam or John, whatever your name is.
Hey, you is my name.
What year did you lose a kidney in the finals?
Yeah.
What year? 60?
67.
67,
Yep.
I can vividly remember the first game of 68.
Yep.
You played us up at Princess Park.
Yep. That's after Polly had left.
Yes,
Yep.
and it was you and me.
Yep.
But after losing that, I was very nervous about jumping into you at centre bounces because
It was mighty nobly of you.
Evan?
That was very considerate of you, seeing as you belted me around.
We played it hard, but we were always friends and still are.
Yeah.
But it was a thing to play someone that's just lost a kidney. And I remember very vividly early in that game, I'm thinking to myself now, what do I do with this bloke? And up I go, and you whack me across the face, and my nose is bleeding, and I'm thinking, well,
That wouldn't be
was
right,
that an
John.
accident or not? So
Yep.
5 minutes later, you do it again.
No.
So I thought, right, okay, well, it's about time I gave you one good one back. I gave you one of my best shots, centre bounce.
Yep.
And do you remember me saying to you, right, what do you want to do? Keep going or
I
play
do.
footy?
I absolutely do remember.
And we both agreed to play footy.
I do remember we were running over to somewhere and you said, hey, is there any point going on with this, or how about we play football? I actually remember that exactly to the day, John. And I don't tell many people that because they think, oh, you're having a lend yourself. But I do remember that absolutely as though it was yesterday.
And I remember also in Scotty in, what was that, 68, in 69 we played in the stateside in Adelaide, won the premiership, the championship.
Yep.
And who do we play? Polly Farmer's gone back to Perth, and
that's right.
We strike him again.
Yeah, we did indeed. Now, what about Carl Dittrich? Carl was meant to be a big tough rough, and
Carl was a bit stiff because as a young blonde-headed kid running around Melbourne, went down to Junction over to St Kilda, his first game, and all the publicity and things, and this young blonde bombshell running around. Well, his second game, he was a bit stiff because he played us up at Carlton. And whilst he was a high jump champion, he's a bit like our young kid at the moment, Tom de Koning, who's going to be a good player.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't learnt how to jump continually, perfectly, but he will. So I just worked out that for me to play against Carl,
you'd have to shorten him up a bit.
I don't think I hit him, but I just jumped at the ball,
yep,
so he couldn't get to it.
That's right.
That was what we used to do. You used to keep our body in between them.
Now, listen, we go back to the 50s, and what fascinated me was that they might carry, say, one ruck rover. Now, at Carlton you had Silvani, but you had other blokes. You mentioned Sankey. You talked about Donaldson. I think there was a bloke a bit later on called Buckley. Did he play in the Brian Buckley play in the ruck as well?
At one stage we had 5 ruckmen.
Now, what did you do? Because we had a ruck rover in our time. We didn't carry, the 4. There were 2 big guys you'd change, but in those days you carried 4. Were you cutting across, shepherding, so the ruckman would get the other ruckman with you would get the hit out?
No, never did. That's the South Australian.
So why did you carry 4 big ruckmen, or 3 big ruckmen?
When I started in 1957, nearly all the sides had 4 ruckmen.
That's right.
Right, at Carlton we had Ken Hands and Kevin Clark, and I started off as a back pocket ruckman, and we had Gerald Burke in the forward pocket, but 4 ruckmen, and that went on for quite a few years. And I think the one that changed that first was Melbourne with Brassey. But then that sort of developed. But at one stage, the piece at Carlton, when I was young, we had 5 ruckmen on our list. Me, Graham Nelson was never a ruckman, but people like Sankey, Brian Buckley, Ken Greenwood.
Ken Greenwood.
Yep. Went to Footscray because he couldn't get a go with us. Lovely bloke, not a bad ruckman, but yeah. So, but Sue Brassey, and then it just so happened Sergio Silvani. But a lot of clubs started doing that.
So what is it? But how did you work the 4 ruckmen? How did you have 2 big guys against? How did that work?
Well, nearly all of my career, Sergio Silvani and I were first ruck for 13 years in a row. So it never happened to me. I didn't have to. Well, I could get my own kicks. I didn't rely on another ruckman to help me and shepherd and block. That's what the Adelaide people used to do. Adelaide ruckmen used to do. They'd play 2-on-1. But, well, it happened to me odd times, and what I used to think was, well, I knew the one that was going to block me. I knew the other one was going to try and jump over the top, so I'd try and get in the middle of them. And I'd hit one and try and beat the other bloke.
Now, John.
No, seriously.
No, because Farmer used to do it. Farmer, when he was coaching, would send Newman and Hampshire in, 2 big ruckmen.
Oh, but they didn't block each other. They didn't block.
Yeah, that the centre bounce.
Sam's always jumped on his own. He didn't need any help.
Now, John, you played in 2 premierships in 68 and 70, and then your first year as captain coach, you captain and coached Carlton to a premiership in 72.
Correct.
That is correct, isn't it?
Yes.
And that was the first year of the McIntyre Final Five system, and you drew with Richmond. Did you not?
Yes, out of Waverley.
Yes, and then had to replay the game.
Yes.
Was that the famous? That wasn't the infamous Barm incident when he belted Southby, or was that a different year?
Oh, look, you could pick 10 matches where Barmy was mad.
I know, and you had some. I could read out what you said about Neil Barm. Do you get on with Neil Barm?
Well, he's another Jekyll and Hyde.
Yep.
A magnificent man, lovely, but he had that white line feel.
This is what you said about him. I didn't respect him as a player because I reckon he was a cheat. He used to dwell on players with his big, strong frame. He should have been doing more courageous things. People over the years say Barmy knocked a couple out, but he basically king hit people.
Well, that's
true.
That's correct.
Yeah, no, that's true.
That's right. That's as it was.
No, that's fine. And was that the year? Was that so? You came back after the draw in 72, and you won the flag. Obviously, was that the year that he did that with Southby, or was that the next year? Because the next year was the
he did it in 2 years. One we won, 72 we won, 73 we got beaten. I think he broke Southby, David Mackay, Kevin Orr. He's hit about 4 blokes in two finals.
So seven.
But it was a dog act.
Yep.
But clearly.
Yep.
But the fact is, off the field, he's a magnificent man.
He is indeed. And so 73 was the infamous Fowler bump on you in the first...
We've had this discussion before, but yes.
I know we've had the discussion before, but it was one of the all-time incidents in AFL, VFL history was when Fowler in the first 3 minutes...
yeah, but that was accidental, wasn't
well, I wasn't saying it wasn't, Don. I'm saying...
Don, I agree, but the thing was about 73, over the year, we were the best side. But when we won the second semi to go straight into the grand final, and in between, after winning the second semi, I lost my 2 best ball getters, Barry Armstrong with appendicitis and Trevor Keogh with a hamstring. And the hamstring, I discovered 6 weeks later, was still a problem. I took him out to Sports World in Heidelberg and Bill Mitchell. He walked out 5 minutes later, as good as gold. He had a cyrectomy about a place, missed a grand final. So I go in without Armstrong and Keogh, who were my 2 best Rovers ball getters, centremen, and we played Vinny Cottagio and Brian Walsh, who passed away last week, sadly.
So, Don, you're right. I wasn't saying it was deliberate, Laurie Fowler, but he collected John and he went down in the first 3 minutes of the game. And
well, I've said for years now, I made him famous.
You actually did make him famous, and you went back and kicked the goal from 40 metres out, one of those flat, torp punts.
Goals were easy to kick. They were then, they should be now, even though people doing all this kicking around corners and twirling it and not watching it and not concentrating.
Famous flat punts you used to kick. You didn't kick the drop punts, did you?
I've said for years and years, kicking goals is like great champion golfers. Every shot, a champion golfer, before he hits it, he analyses what to do, he visualises it. Kicking goals is the same. You visualise in your mind. You do all the things you're taught. And a lot of blokes nowadays don't concentrate and they spray them.
So as captain coach, did you not put Peter Jones into the ruck when they thought you should have been in the ruck, and you put yourself down at full forward and kicked 6 goals in the game?
Yes,
what was the strategy about
I
doing that?
I knew that I was nearly gone as a ruckman.
Yep.
The big spring I had when I was young, you start losing as you get older, and I had very bad ankles like you did.
Yep.
And for a ruckman having bad ankles, it's no good.
Was that as captain coach you did that?
Yes. Yeah.
So you didn't let your ego get the best of you. You put Jones into the ruck. You went down and kicked 6 goals, I think, at full forward, and Walls kicked 6 at centre half forward. Did he not?
Well, 28 goals, 5.
That's right.
Schools stay forever.
Was that when McKellar was in the ruck?
Yes, Craig McKellar.
Yeah, well, I thought that was I thought Jones did an unbelievable job in that particular.
Well,
grand final.
Jonesy had been a bit of an enigma. He hadn't been playing to his ability. And I don't care who it is, when a ruckman is made first ruckman, you improve out of sight.
But McKellar, to put it into context, was the dominant ruckman through that year.
Well, if I had played him 5 years earlier, I probably could have handled him. But
Well, I'm not saying you... No,
I'm saying, but the reason why, nothing to do with ego, you have to be a realist, and I was a realist, in fact, that I would struggle against McKellar at 35 years of age.
Yeah, but you would have still... Well, what Jones did was just what you did, come in on the angles, which didn't allow McKellar to get off the ground.
I tried to teach Jonesy a bit, but he didn't learn very much, but he was good that day. And
he was all right. Don't worry about Jay. He could come in on the angles. He was all right.
Now, I just want to ask you about in '76, 3 days before the season started, you resigned as the coach, the captain. You resigned as captain coach, did you not?
I did.
Was this the start of your...
Not as captain and coach, as coach.
Just as coach, yep. Was this the start of your... You had some disagreement with the hierarchy at Carlton over the years. I'll get on to what you said about a couple of people, just because it's well documented.
George Harris was a pig, bad dentist. Did a good job in a lot of areas as president, but... he involved himself in the football side, which he didn't have the ability or the, things like, apart from the fact that he was, I'll come back to when I was told to retire one Thursday night by George Harris, but, he recruited people like Billy Barrett. Brass was coach, match committee. Brass and I did everything together. But we were told on a Tuesday night, by George Harris at match committee, you've got a new player this week, Billy Barrett. I promised him in the size. We had to play him, whether we wanted to or not. That's number one. My last year, captain and coach, he went and recruited Alex Ruskuklik, Fitzroy, to play in the forward pocket where I was playing as captain and coach, because he felt Ruskuklik was a better player than I was at my stage of life. This is George Harris.
Yep. So is this the reason why you snatched it at 3 days before the...
Look, not altogether. That was a mixture of things, and I was probably having problems. I was worn
motivation.
out. I was having problems in life mentally and things, but I was worn out.
Yep.
Did you play in that first game, or were you coaching Barrett? The first game at Princess Park, because it was against Hawthorn. Were you in that game?
When you say Barrett?
You're Bill Barrett.
I played in every game that Billy Barrett played.
Well, I could not believe that first game was against Hawthorn at Princess Park, with the ball's just about ready to be bounced to start the game, and Barrett was off his head. He was screaming. I later found out he was manic depressant.
That could be right, but that's the way he played with Richmond.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was the way he played with St Kilda badly.
So when he was on, and when he was off, he was off.
Well, I think Tommy Hafey got the best out of him when he was playing in Richmond's good sides. Yeah. Just kick long, kick it to Royce, get out of the way of Royce Hart and let him do the disc.
So, John, in 2002, the club won its first wooden spoon ever, and you said this about the club. And I'm probably, you could probably say it about it up until they're playing in the finals this year, but you said the thing that annoys me at the moment about Carlton is the lack of respect generally in the footballing public. I know that without going right through all the 50-odd years. I've seen a lot of good committees come and go, I've seen a lot of good players come and go, but there is a lack of respect to me, and that's the trashing of the Carlton brand. So did that start with... I don't know what you thought of John Elliott, or did you have respect? You didn't have great respect for George Harris, I've got a feeling, and you're a proud Carlton man. And as I say, it's a coincidence that you're in here because Carlton are playing in the finals tomorrow or the next day, whenever that is. But that's not why you're here. But you're a proud Carlton man. How are they?
Many things.
You said they're arrogant.
Many things. You can look at things, but I was taught to be you know, win or lose. I was taught to be humble. If you win, don't be arrogant about it. If you lose, shake hands as we used to in those days. You respect each other. But then George Harris and later on John Elliott, particularly with Collingwood, we had success in those years and we became so bloody arrogant after winning.
Yep.
I used to hate that, and what it did was give all the other 11 teams in those days, 11 other sides, a challenge to, to hate Carlton more.
When we won, they didn't know how to win properly. I believe the thing is about sport, you've got to know how to win and how to lose, and both do it with integrity.
Well, what's changed?
No, that's what you said. And
well, I stand by that.
And you think Carlton's reputation suffered for many years over the fact that they had that tag of arrogance on them?
Oh, look, they did, but I think going back into... I mean, our trouble started without going... I haven't got enough time to talk about it, but our trouble started in 1995 when we won that flag so easily, arrogantly. We knocked off Geelong, who had a poor side in. Carlton had a good side, but we had a good, wealthy side. We spent a fortune to get them all together. To think you got, Kernaghan's, and we recruited the Greg Williams and, Silvani fullback and, and Craig Bradley. We had a fantastic side. And nearly all the other clubs had poor years. But since then, Carlton refused to... I think Parko was coach at the time, and he wasn't allowed to bring young kids in because they had all the... we had Lance Whitnell, couldn't get a game because all the oldies were getting paid big money, were being played. So we didn't recruit well. And then when the SHIT word hit the fan when they got caught cheating on... It was all to do, really, controlled by John Elliott and Wes Lofts, where they were paying players cash outside of rules and regulations. And without going into all the ways they did it, but they burnt several of our good supporters who they were channeling money through so the players could get paid in cash. So I know of two great Carlton people, great players, friends of mine, that really haven't been back to the club since that 20-odd years because of what Elliott and Lofts did. And that was the start of getting fined and losing draft picks.
Who are those people?
Sorry?
Who are those people that didn't go back to the club?
No, I'm not going to embarrass them.
I
wouldn't embarrass them. But
no, that's all right.
That was all to do with what was wrong with Carlton. Yep. And then at the stage when, one of our greatest ever players administrators, Ian Collins, was sucked into it to come back to be president when the club was on its hands and knees, no money. Going back to Scotty, back from the time when Carlton built Hawthorn Stand, gigantic money owed. Hawthorn were enticed to go out and play at Waverley. Carlton still had to pay for the stand. So the money they owed, they built the Legend Stand, which was not a white elephant. They owed so much money. And then that was the slide where they started going down. And it wasn't really until going back a few years ago now, in the last 10 years we've been recruiting well. Haven't had much luck in getting everything to come together at the one time. But the board we've got is good. The overall setup is good. Voss is good. Brian Cook's good.
So I was just going to ask you.
And it's everything is there really to build the next 4 or 5 years.
So this salary cap, when the Essendon rorted the salary cap, so did Carlton. It's a harsh penalty, isn't it? Because Essendon really haven't recovered and Carlton really haven't recovered from that handing down or penalty handed down by the AFL. It really does stifle teams, doesn't it?
It does, but Essendon is such a strong club. Apart from Collingwood, Essendon's probably the most wealthiest club in Victoria. They always have been. I mean, they've got such great membership, and they've gone out there and spent basically a fortune on their own ground and environment. And the lack of success, yes, but within a year or two, Essendon will bounce back. You can rely on them.
So John, in recent times, there's been the coaches of the club have been Britton, Pagan, Ratton, Bolton, Teague, Voss, Malthouse. Have any of those people sought out the great John Nichols for advice, or is your counsel sought after by people still at the club, or are you? I know you're very involved in it, and you're very involved with the past players and that. Do they still ask you for your advice about things down there? Do they respect you?
To be honest with you, they don't ask me for advice. I probably give it.
You give it, yeah, and that's
they don't always listen. But
of those people I mentioned then, those coaches, did any stand out to you, or did you think they made some pretty poor choices over the journey?
The club made a couple of bad decisions. The worst decision was getting Malthouse to come. He never gelled in with supporters or players.
Why do you think?
Pardon?
Why do you think? Just wasn't...
I don't know. It wasn't because he was Collingwood, but
wasn't in the culture of the club?
Well, the club probably wasn't a good running club at the time, and it was a long time for him. But I mean, the time we sacked Brett Ratton, I was very disappointed because we made the finals that year. We had the basis of a good side there, but now look, clubs. It doesn't matter how you go back to before my time, but the great South Melbourne in the old days, well, great club. At one stage of the piece, in 15 years, they had 12 coaches, 12 administrators, had great players. There's no club in football that's going to be successful unless you've got a proper board and a proper man at the top. The board, the recruiting, the CEO. There's no club can win without them. Now we've got them. And I think during that period we had disruptions in administration, recruiting.
You might not want to comment on this. Did you think the AFL made the right decision to remove Barry Cable from being an legend of the AFL? Because it's a pretty big honour to be a legend. It's a big honour to be a Hall of Famer, but to be one of the legends of our great game is a pretty high esteem. It's a high esteem award.
Sam, I know Barry Cable very, very well, but and look, I don't know exactly what's happened or what he's supposed to have done, but it is a big decision, and I'm sad for him because he was.
Did you agree with the decision?
Well,
you're either a good footballer or you're not, despite what you might have.
In today's lifestyle, Sam, it was probably the only decision that they can make. You go back 20 years, 30 years ago, it mightn't have been made then, but the way life is now and the way...
Yeah.
I don't know, how do you say all the do-gooders?
Yep.
The way life is generally, it was the only decision to make.
Yep.
I mean, you can say now, I've heard in the last couple of days, criticism of Bomber Thompson presenting a medal at grand final day.
Yep.
Once again, people say he doesn't deserve it, but he does. He played in premierships, coached Geelong to premierships, which is the rule to be asked. When they bring in other personal things, well, I don't know and I don't want to comment on it.
And by the same, it's just, I mean, you've had controversy in your life, as Don and I have, and you've overcome that. It's things you've transgressed, like we all have. But to your great credit, you've remained on top, and you've remained absolutely respected in this great game of ours, Don. And you would.
Why haven't you, John? Just going on. Why haven't you given more interviews, press? You're a bit of an enigma. You've come along here and talk, and it's great listening to.
Fantastic.
Why haven't you given...
No disrespects to you. I wouldn't come for you alone. It was for Sam.
Yeah.
We've been friends for a long time.
Yeah, I understand all that. But why haven't you been more accessible? Is it been a conscious effort of you to keep a lower profile, or what? Why?
You are what you are. Sam is what he is. I am what I am, and I'm not one to do interviews because I've got my own life. I've never seeked publicity. I think the only interview I did was probably with a journalist last year in the Herald Sun because of something that was going on with Carlton. So I decided I'd do an interview with them to get a point over for Carlton. It wasn't for me. I don't need publicity.
So will you go along to the final this week?
Yes.
You've been asked to go?
Carlton. I'm blessed. As a legend, I get invited to
everything.
Everything in the AFL, which is.
Hang on, do you go to the main function?
I do. Yes.
Now you're on the Life Members Board. You, Ian Collins, and Ded Tudden make up the executive.
Yes.
Do you think the AFL pays enough respect to the past? Because I've got a theory that you've got to understand the past to go forward. And I could see this Life Members thing over the years just slowly being watered away till it's just about nothing.
We briefly talked about that before, Scotty, but let me say this. I think I'm the oldest, longest serving Life member. I think I started in 1973. I've been contributing to the committee for the last 40 years. We are constantly fighting to keep our rights or entitlements, whatever the right word is. But as a basic rule, Scotty, we've had gold passes or gold entrees to 2 tickets every game throughout every year. 2 tickets to the final, including grand finals. Now, the grand final has become so hard to manage because of numbers. Going back 15 years ago, we'd have a room on our own grand final day, sit-down room, might be 100 people, 120 people there. Now we've currently got 260 odd members nationally. If they all get invited to come to grand final with partners, there's 500. It's impossible.
So is the Life? It's an honour. It was an honour. Do you think they're handing out too many Life memberships, discretionary Life memberships?
Well, that's a bit.
Subjective thing?
It's a good question, which I don't want to get involved in. But I mean, we had to play 300 games in those days. We've now got something like 12 or 15 umpires that have umpired 400 games. One's going to do 500. So we've got 15 umpires. But going back 20 years ago, we had probably one, Jack Irving. Jack McMurray had died. But so that's one changing times. The other changing thing is, for better or worse, the women's competition and the women's rights, we've now got 2 or 3 Life members who are ladies that have earned their position in various areas. Don't look at me like this, Scotty. So I don't know the answer, but it's it's a changing life, and the how do you say it? AFW?
Yeah, AFLW.
That's going to get it's going to get bigger and bigger. I'm not going to say it's going to get better, but it's going to get, all the clubs are into it in a big way, nationally, advertising-wise, membership-wise, and then we'll start getting Life members from them.
Now, this is Ivan, who's sat here for 53 minutes.
He doesn't know me as Ivan.
No, his name's Paul, but I call him
I have
Ivan.
a question. In the present game, all the theatrics and the players running on, what do you make of that? Because in your day, they would just come on, start the game.
It's a very good question,
So
Ivan.
what
You
may
just
not
run
want
out
us-
through the streamers
yeah.
and get on with it. Now they warm up.
Yeah,
on
they
the
kick
ground.
the footy around. And
When I started, 19th and 20th weren't interchangeable. When you're off, you're off.
Yep. That's it.
So do you think the integrity of the game is what it has been eroded?
Well, I tend not to judge that much as everything in life has changed. Everything.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't, you know, when we started, when I started, when I was captain and coach of 72 winning a flag, I had an assistant coach, Keith McKenzie. I had a runner, George Frigo, who did all our fitness work for us, and that was it. I did the lot. Now they've got 15 of them.
Now,
20.
Don, everything has changed. We spoke about free bleeding at the start of this thing. So if you don't think life has changed, John won't know what we're talking about, and rightly and luckily for that. So could we say this, Don? John Robert Nichols. It has been a privilege to have him in here. We've found great honour to have played against him. He is an inaugural member of the AFL Legends, and we really appreciate you coming in, John Robert Nichols.
I haven't finished yet. I've got to talk to Scotty about a couple of things. Scotty, I was doing some research on you in the last few days too. Someone tells me two things at Hawthorn that stood out. You went one whole year and didn't talk to one player. One whole year.
No, that's wrong.
No, was that
I spoke to two.
Spoke to two of them. Okay. And the other thing was, my great mate, we lost him, God bless him, John Kennedy, said one of the mistakes he made one year, he played a good game in the finals and he rang you up and congratulated on what a great game it was.
40 years later.
Yes, but all the players that played better than you, he didn't ring them, he sucked up to you, and they were crook on you because you got a phone call, they didn't. Is that true? So
I had 5 conversations.
So is that yes to both those things?
Yeah, it's yes to both.
That's all. I'm finished now.
John, Don and Ivan, it's been fantastic, and we really thank you for coming in to You Cannot Be Serious, the great John Nichols.